disproportionately low. So joining us tonight will be indeed the NGO Coordinating Council Executive Director and Mbewe Anamela. And I think it's important that we put women at the front of the mic this evening. So that will be our discussion coming through. Stay tuned because it's going to be quite insightful, not just for the women out there, but for the man as well.
Osachedwa hapa. Ana mbiri mdziko la Zambia samapita ku skulu chifukwa makolo awo sankakwanitsa kuwalipirira. Lero ana 2.5 million abwerera mkalasi ndipo akukhala pa madesiki ndi kudya chakudya chopatsa thanzi pansi pa ndondomeko yodyetsa masukulu. Dziko lonseli la Zambia anthu akunena zimenezi tili pa njira yoyenera tikupita patsogolo. Ndi chifukwa chake bali akugwira ntchito tsiku ndi tsiku chifukwa monga tinaperekera maphunziro aulere tidzapitiriza kupereka kwa mwana aliyense akudikira ndipo banja lililonse likhala likuyendabe mpaka tsogolo likhale chinthu chomwe nzika iliyonse ya dziko la Zambia ikhala itamva. Tayamba kusintha tsopano tiyenditsirize ntchito. Pa 13 August 2026 voterani Hakainde Hichilema monga president wa dziko la Zambia ndipo tipitirize kupereka Zambia patsogolo pamodzi.
Not long ago, many children in Zambia did not go to school because their parents could not afford it. Today, 2.5 million children are back in the classroom, sitting on desks and being fed nutritious meals under the school feeding program. Markets are now peaceful with no cadre violence. Clinics stand where there were none. There's still much work ahead, jobs to create, futures to secure. And that's why Bali keeps working day after day. Because just as we delivered free education, we will keep delivering. For every child still waiting and every family still rising. Until progress is something every Zambian feels. We've started the change. Now let's finish the job. On the 13th of August 2026, vote for Hakainde Hichilema as President of the Republic of Zambia. And let us continue to move Zambia forward together.
In your face, all over the place. We're online 24/7. 24/7. You're listening to
Sky FM, the People's Radio.
The hottest DJ mixing the beats. Beats.
The biggest conversations with the biggest stars.
Dropping another banger.
Yo, what's good? It's your man Flo Rida.
Spinning on the ones and twos.
Yeah, it's that little Chico Pitbull. Yo, what's up, y'all? This is Kanye.
This is
You don't know, say, yo, this is Sean Party Girls. I'm overall. I tell him, say, locking and stocking. Take it away.
This is happening on Sky FM, the People's Radio.
I'm blinded by your grace. I'm blinded by your grace, by your grace. I'm blinded by your grace. I'm blinded by your Lord, I've been broken. Although I'm not worthy, you fix me. I'm blinded by your grace. You came and saved me. Lord, I've been broken. Although I'm not worthy, you fixed me. Now I'm blinded by your grace. You came and saved me. One time for the Lord, and one time for the cause. And one round of applause, one time for Fraser T. Smith on the chords. I think we got one. I stay prayed up, then I get the job done. Yeah, I'm Abigail's youth, but I'm God's son. But I'm up now, look at what God's done. No, real talk, look at what God did. On the main stage, running around topless. I phone flips, then I tell him that we got this. This is God's plan, they can never stop this. Like, wait right there, could you stop my verse? You saved this kid and I'm not your first. It's not by blood and it's not by birth. But oh my God, what a God I serve. Lord, I've been broken. Although I'm not worthy, you fix me. I'm blinded by your grace. You came and saved me, Lord. I've been broken, although I'm not worthy. You fixed me, now I'm blinded by your grace. You came and saved me. I said a prayer this morning. I prayed I would find a way to another day. I was so afraid till you came and saved. You came and saved me. And the rain was pouring, 'cause the sun faded away. Now I'm in a better place, no longer afraid. Blinded by your grace, you came and saved me. I said a prayer this morning. I prayed I would find a way to another day. I was so afraid till you came and saved. You came and saved me. And the rain was pouring, 'cause the sun faded away. Now I'm in a better place, oh I'm not afraid. Blinded by your grace, you came and saved me. Although I'm not worthy, you fixed me. I'm blinded by your grace. I'm blind. You came and saved me. Lord, I'm broken.
If you're an avid listener, you've probably been wondering, Nana, you keep repeating the song. Isn't it beautiful, right? It's called Blinded by Your Grace by Stormzy. Hope you're enjoying the music right here. But the music comes to a pause because it's time for us to step into Sky Forum. This is where we have very important discussions about perhaps everything that is happening in Zambia, anything that affects you politically, socially. This is the space that we do it on. And today the theme we've termed it Advancing Women's Political Participation Through the Her Time Is Now campaign. Now, good evening and welcome to Sky Forum. Democracy is at its strongest when every citizen has an equal opportunity to lead. Yet, despite women making up more than half of Zambia's population and a significant share of the electorate, their representation in elected office remains disproportionately low. As the country heads towards August, polls are certainly going to be opened because the ballot boxes will be on fire, as I'm putting forward, I've been saying for the past few days. Well, nominations have closed, right? And the spotlight has shifted from aspiration to participation. Have we made meaningful progress, or are women still confronting the same barriers of limited campaign financing, political violence, discrimination, and deeply rooted patriarchal attitudes? Those are some of the questions we'll be hopefully covering in this interview, or rather this conversation. And in response to those challenges, we are having indeed the executive director of the Ngocc, Mrs. Anamela, who is part of the council that has launched the Her Time Is Now campaign, which is introducing an innovative donation button to help mobilize support, rather public support for women seeking political office. But can a fundraising campaign change the political landscape? I mean, are political parties even doing enough? And what more must Zambia do to ensure that leadership reflects the diversity of its people? Well, I may not be able to answer that alone, but indeed, the executive director of the NGO Coordinating Council perhaps will do that. Mrs. Mbewe Anamela, thank you so much for your time and welcome to Sky FM.
Thank you, Nana, and thank you for inviting me.
Indeed. So that's the conversation in this hour. Please stay tuned. Remember, you are more than welcome to start sending your text messages through an 0966 100 885 and 0777 885 885 so that when lines officially open, you are well and ready.
We bring you news, fun, laughter, and entertainment. This is Sky FM.
The views and opinions expressed in this program are those of the speakers and do not necessarily reflect the views or positions of Sky FM.
All right, officially time for us to step into this discussion. I already welcomed you. How was the day treating you? Are you well?
I'm well, thanks. I'm getting cold, though.
The winter's wintering, and in the studio, it's more like Antarctica.
Yes, it is.
Let's just really lay the foundation for this discussion, right? Women's political participation. Last September, right, the NGOCC celebrated 40 years of championing the rights of women and girls in Zambia. Now, for the benefit of our listeners, can you briefly tell us about what the NGOCC's mandate is, perhaps its role it continues to play, perhaps in advancing gender equality and more especially women's leadership?
Okay, thank you, Nana. As you rightly said, NGOCC was established 40 years ago, 1985. And currently, it's Zambia's largest umbrella organization, coordinating over 120 member organizations. These are NGOs, faith-based organizations, and community-based organizations. Our mandate is around ensuring that we promote gender equity and equality in this country. And we have three core things that we look at. One is that we look at ensuring that we advocate for a conducive environment in terms of the legal and policy frameworks that we have in this country. A conducive environment that will advance the empowerment and the general well-being of women and girls. And then we also have a coordinating role, as our name implies. We're a council of NGOs, so we coordinate the gender responses in this country, especially working through our member network and our member organizations, but also networking with other like-minded civil society organizations. And then the other one is around, besides the coordinating, just ensuring that the women's movement is well capacitated to address issues of gender equity and equality through building the capacity of the network to effectively impact issues of gender equity and equality in this country. Our focus around gender equity and equality is on the empowerment of women, and we have deliberately done that because historically women have been more disadvantaged than men in many ways.
Now, you have launched something called Her Time Is Now campaign. Quite a powerful words put together there. And it's been incredible implementation, right, to increase women's participation in politics. But really, what is the campaign all about? I mean, we can get a bit from the name of it, but also what really inspired its establishment, especially now?
What inspired its establishment was the reality of what we saw in terms of the participation of women, particularly in political office. I can't say current because Parliament has been dissolved, but in the elections after 2021, what we saw was that we only had 15% women elected to Parliament and only 7.8 women elected at local government level. Now, that is very dismal, especially given that women form over 50% of the population in Zambia. And if we talk about representation, equal representation, then there's really something wrong with those statistics. In cabinet office, where it was these were appointed positions, only 4 were women out of 25. So what we really see is that there is need for some very deliberate actions to ensure that we improve these statistics and get to a point of 50-50, because that's what it should be if we talk about inclusiveness. So that was what inspired us. And this hasn't started now. Even in previous elections, the highest we ever reached at parliamentary level for women was 18% in the past. And now we dipped down to 15%. And that 15%, mind you, includes, that's when we include the speaker and the vice president. Otherwise, it's actually 14%.
Sure.
Yeah.
These statistics are scary indeed, because we've obviously just shared the fact that over 50% make the population at that. So looking back over the implementation period of the Her Time Is Now campaign, has there been some sort of impact you've seen through this campaign? Perhaps also on women's political participation, people more willing to step forward, of seeing some sort of, I can put myself in that place and I can see myself there?
Yes, I think there has been some impact because we collected a database of women that were willing to participate, and that database went up to close to 550, and that's a good number. And actually, by the time we're going just near elections, it went up a little bit, but it was fluctuating. So I won't give you the exact number because some withdrew, some, but it went up to, close to about 550. And these are women whom a number of them we used to meet monthly at the NGOCC secretariat, just coordinating their meeting. Very confident women. And we saw their confidence in that a good number, more than we've seen before, were willing to even stand as independents. You know, they said, well, I don't belong to a political party, or I did belong to one, but there seems to be confusion in that political party. So I'm ready to stand as an independent. And that is fantastic, because generally would think that women would think, oh, I'll be safer in a political party. But some were just bold enough to say, I'll stand as an independent. And we have seen some actually go ahead and get nominated as independents.
And speaking about these political parties, you've actually gone through some sort of engagements with them ahead of the 2026 general elections. What do these engagements look like, and what was the purpose behind them? And has there been a positive or rather negative response to your calls of greater inclusion of women through the political process or political juice as we head towards the elections?
Yeah, so engaging those political parties was actually part of our Her Time Is Now campaign, because we needed to engage the political parties, because that's where the issues start. They are the gatekeepers. They determine how many women are going to be adopted. That is done at political party level. So if the adoption rate of candidates is low at political party level, then it will, really show itself in the actual elections, because we'll have fewer women on the ballot box. So that was part of our Her Time Is Now campaign. So in engaging the political parties, what we sought to do was to firstly encourage them to adopt, gender responsive nomination processes. Sometimes that is a bit challenging, because what we see is that in the national executive committees or the leadership of these political parties, we have more men than we have women. And as we go forward, and even in the past, we continue to advocate for more inclusiveness, even in the leadership of these political parties. But for now, what we're encouraging was gender responsive nomination responses that would actually look at what is the population of this country, and how many, looking at that population, for example, if there's 60% of the population in Zambia, when you look at the demographics, are youth, doesn't it make sense that 60% in leadership should be youth? Yeah. So, when you talk about responsive nomination processes, people should look at the demographics and try and be as inclusive as possible. And then we're also advocating for the promotion of peaceful and issue-based campaigns. From what we've seen in all our experience, and even what we're seeing now, when campaigns move from being issue-based to going to personal attacks, this is where we fuel the possibility of violence in elections. So we were actually speaking to the political parties to promote peaceful and issue-based elections, and actually encourage the political parties to prevent violence against women in elections. We have seen violence against women, especially online, we've seen a lot of violence against women in terms of verbal abuse and all that. I think you recently may have seen what happened in Mwandi concerning Iris Kayingo, and we actually issued a statement, condemning that sort of violence. That was not the only case. We think we've had cases also somewhere in Eastern Province. So we really want to discourage violence against women in elections, because while we're trying to improve the number of women, if there is violence, women will stay away. So, and they've told us, some of their experiences, and now sometimes it's so discouraging because of the violence against women. Then we also wanted to avert this assertion that there are no women available there. Remember, I talked about a database. So that database actually had also women indicating, for those who wanted to stand under political parties, which political party they belonged to and which political party they wanted to stand under. So we went to the political parties with a list of women that had indicated that they wanted to stand under their political party, because we didn't want them to continue saying there are no women out there. We said, here's the list of women. What you do with it is up to you, but what we expect you to do with it is to adopt these women. because they have indicated that they are interested. And if you're looking for women, if indeed you're interested in gender parity 50-50, here are the women. So that's what we did with those and those, as you saw, we engaged all the political parties that we could, as many as we could, so that we made sure that we gave them the lists. And then for those who were independent candidates, we took to the political parties that did not have any lists, and we said, women who might be interested. So that was one of the reasons, to make sure that we profiled these women to these political parties. We had the name, we had the position, whether it was MP or councillor, where they wanted to stand, and their contact details, so that there's no excuse at all. And we just wanted to really explain and sensitize these political parties on the importance of increasing women's participation. It's very important that women participate, because we women have our own unique lived experiences, which we need to bring to the table when it comes to the legislature, to the executive. We have our own lived experiences. So these must come, and they can only come if we're in positions where we can speak, where we can influence policy and legislation. And the other thing that we wanted to do was to also engage on the proportional representation that is going to happen, just to speak to the political parties and say, this is law now. So how ready are you to ensure that you're nominating women that will be capable of representing the women of Zambia when they go in there? We know that they'll be nominated with political parties, but they're going in there under the constituency of women nominated to represent women. So they shouldn't forget that.
So, as you mentioned, I was writing just a few of them. The adoption, issue-based, database. Has there been a positive response from these political parties that you've engaged? I mean, I know we're still heading towards the general elections, but now that nominations have closed, have parties actually adopted the vision that you had hoped with this campaign?
I don't think we've gotten to the proportions that we wanted in terms of, proportion of women compared to men. I don't think we've gotten there, but what we're happy about is that a number of those women that were on those lists have been adopted. There were challenges in some areas, but the fact that we could see some of those women adopted is a good thing. But we still fall short of the issue of 50-50 representation.
And as we go further now with this, I mean, during the filing of nominations, your organization said that we're going to provide support indeed to the aspiring women candidates across the country. Now, for those who are maybe looking forward to 2030 and feeling slightly a little bit encouraged, what kind of support did the organization offer? As in, what exactly, or what due process does somebody come saying, I'm interested in politics, I would like to stand, or I'd like to be part of a party? What are those support formats you have put forward? And why did it become important to that one person who said that I really leaned on the NGOCC and this is what I got out of it?
Okay, for us this time around, we started almost 3 years ago identifying some of these women and working with them around programs to improve their confidence, public speaking, as well as to look at campaign strategy. So for those that we were not able to, of course, go around the whole country. We only managed to go where we could because of the limited resources. But I'm sure there are women out there who will say confidently that we attended, events where this happened. And when we talk about NGOCC, as I said, is a membership-based organization, so we coordinate what happens. And the lead organization among our members on women's participation is the National Women's Lobby Group. So when you see National Women's Lobby Group conducting training with maybe NGOCC Secretariat, that is NGOCC. And then we also have the Young Women in Action, because we're very deliberate about ensuring that we have as many young people as possible. And for us, as I said, our focus is women. So we had the Young Women in Action also going around and training young women around the country, just preparing them, as I said, confidence, public speaking, campaign strategy. Then we also we're very deliberate about engaging another of our members, the Zambia National Association of Women with Disabilities, NADO, to ensure also that women with disability were prepared for the elections. So that was part of what we did around preparing women for these elections. Where we could, we had radio programs across the country, and some of the ladies could go on the radio and just for their profile, but also we had women going on and just talking about why it's important to support women. And we even had some mentorship programs where we would develop what we are calling foot soldiers in the different districts, and these foot soldiers would work with the women aspiring candidates there. Those foot soldiers are still working now to support. They supported the women through the nominations, and also they're supporting with they'll be supporting with the campaigns wherever they are.
And from your observation, with all these mandates you put forward, all these strategic lobbyings that you put forward, how would you really describe the overall nomination and campaign environment for women candidates?
The nomination, we saw a few challenges, and some challenges did not even get out there into the public because we just dealt with them quietly. We have examples of women who came to us and said, look, I was told by the party hierarchy that I was the preferred candidate in area X. But when I went to collect my adoption certificate, I found it had been given to somebody else. And in every single case, it had been given to a man. And we would intervene and engage the political party and even the gender division, because they are also interested in seeing women participate. So we'd engage the gender division. And I must say the gender division was very responsive. You know, each time we engage them with some of the specific cases, we would sit, I would report, or somebody in our office would report, we sit there and resolve it right there and there. We're on a long telephone call until we resolve it, until the person would come and say, oh, I've got my certificate. I was almost dribbled. Yes. In some cases, it didn't work. Like you saw the Lusaka case, or the mayor case, where our chairperson even ended up in being detained by the police for supporting a female mayor candidate. So we did get some cases that we dealt with. So besides that, there were some women who just went through without any incidents, and that is very good. We hope to see more of that in the future.
And comparing the past to maybe the present and hopefully the future, how would you rate now the turnout of women candidates in this year's general election compared to previous elections? In as much as those women are not even standing, but just in terms of the numbers, have you seen perhaps maybe an increased drive for women to actually come forward? Or are we sort of still seeing those sort of 15 to 18% you mentioned in some stats?
No. I think there's an increased drive, and even just the fact that women were willing to stand as independents, that shows you something, that they're willing to, to really do whatever they can in terms of what is possible to be counted among those that would be nominated for office. And another thing also is seeing young women, very confident young women, and very goal oriented and ready to go out there and participate. That I think is also very good. Now you see that there are things that have happened over the last few years which are attributed to some of the lobbying of NGOCC and other organizations that focus on women's empowerment. We've seen the two female vice presidents. We've seen the first female justice minister. A few years ago, we had the first female finance minister in Madam Edith Nawakwi, followed then by Madam Mwanakatwe. So seeing these firsts, I think, encourages women, and seeing that, well, they were there and they're performing. They performed, to the best of their abilities. So that, I think, is quite encouraging. And we see, but in terms of the actual numbers that have made it on the ballot box, that is yet to be confirmed when the ECZ publishes. But we have done our own counting through our member organizations. So far, the figures that we have are confirmed for now are about 300, and of those 64 are members of parliament. But we haven't yet gotten all the feedback. And then, as I said, the figures have to be confirmed by ECZ. Yes.
Let's look beyond contesting elective positions. Let's speak about women on the ground. I mean, the ordinary voter, the campaign team member, the election agent, the civic leaders. Are we seeing more activity of women participating in those roles, or are they still being sidelined by the ordinary male bus conductor? And I use that word because usually that's what the word comes up, in the bus stations, in the marketplaces. But the women who are just the ordinary voter, do we see perhaps more activity on those fronts as well?
Well, there are certain roles that women have traditionally played when it comes to elections. Some of them are roles that we really would not encourage them to continue or to stay there. And that is when there are nomination groups, they'll be doing the cooking. And these are women who, in their own right, are very strong women that if they decided to stand, they would win. There are certain women we have found when we've gone around in these rural areas who are community leaders. Their communities recognize them as such. And when they speak, they're listened to. But what they do is they come then and receive people coming from Lusaka and begin to campaign for them. And these are men. And these men win because of the strength of these women. So what we'd like to see are some of these women. And we've asked them, look, you have been so strong in this era. Everybody recognizes you as a leader. Why don't you stand? Some of the impediments actually have been this issue around the grade 12 exam. But we've encouraged women to go and register and resit exams so that they can get into grade 12. And that's another thing that we really want to continue following even after these elections. Which women would be really interested, and how do we ensure that starting from next year they start resitting for exams so that they can qualify? So there are quite a few women, but sometimes, it's the roles that they play. So there's that one around supporting others through cooking and all that. But there are some women who are very good campaign managers, which is also good to be a campaign manager. And while they are doing that, we hopefully they are learning so that they too can stand in future, because there are men who've been good campaign managers and have gone on, themselves. And then what we'd like to see also, which has happened in the past, we have trained women, is we would like to see more women getting ready to be monitors, election monitors, yes. Also to be polling station, agents. So we would like more women, participating, but across the different spectrum of the roles in elections, not just the cooking and the dancing. And we've seen, I think, a bit of reduction in the dancing. Huh? Yeah. Do you agree with me? And that's very good. I mean, I didn't like seeing our mothers and our sisters, going out there dancing. It's good to dance and to be joyful and to be happy. And it's part of our culture. But we shouldn't be confined to that. And it shouldn't just be women. And that shouldn't be our role. So we're expecting, better participation. And we are and will be. We've already started training some monitors and we'll continue doing that. Mm-hmm.
This conversation is quite encouraging. I mean, to the young girl out there, perhaps not even just young, but those who seeing themselves in political spaces, those who want to have leadership roles. And I mean, coming from the previous conversation, can women really have it all? I think those answers are being answered right here in Sky Forum. If you've just tuned in, it is Sky Forum. This is a conversation very important to you as an ordinary Zambian, male or female. Because what we have termed this conversation is advancing women's political participation through indeed this amazing campaign called Her Time Is Now. Joining us right now in studio is Mrs. Mbewe Anamela, who's the Executive Director of the Ngocc. Now, I'm officially going to say that our lines are 0966 100 885 and 0777 885 885. In about 10 to 15 minutes, we'll officially open the lines for you to call in. But I know there are people who perhaps are in a rush, in the midst of it, and you want to maybe quickly send a text message. You're more than welcome to do so, and I'll pass the questions forward. Now, let's just go a bit further now with some gaps that still remain. We've obviously spoken about the seats in Parliament. You said that for the fact that over 50% is the population, but we're only seeing a representation of 15% in Parliament, it is a bit of a question mark. So where do gaps still remain with promoting women's political participation in Zambia, other than perhaps just the seats in Parliament?
The gaps remain because we have patriarchal beliefs in Zambia. We still haven't moved largely from the beliefs that women cannot lead in the way men can. But we should know that leadership has no gender. It's about the capacity and the capability of the individual. So we still have those beliefs. There are still beliefs that even by educated men that the woman's place is in the kitchen. There are some men who are educated who will not even allow their wives to work because they believe, no, your role is to stay at home. So it's those patriarchal beliefs around boys or men can do better than girls. These are the roles that are suitable for women. There are biological roles, and sometimes those biological roles translate into, for instance, thinking that because the woman is the one that carries the child, she's the one that has the role to stay at home and just continue with taking care of the children and not go and participate in public life. So it's the belief systems, the norms, at individual level, family level, community level that still hinder women's participation. In terms of legal frameworks, I think we have sufficient legal frameworks in Zambia. Right from the constitution, we have provisions that call for equality and equity. But it's how we implement our legal frameworks. We have the Gender Equity and Equality Act, for example, which is a very good document. We have the National Gender Policy. And we have various legal frameworks. Even when we look at the Anti-GBV Act, it's a very good policy. But we still see GBV. So it's still the attitudes, the mind. We need mindset shifts in this country to recognize that leadership has no gender. Anybody can lead. Look at the capacity first before you look at the gender of the person.
And I believe patriarchy is one of those challenges you've highlighted indeed in advancing women in politics. But what other bigger challenges are we seeing besides the progress made? Because we are wanting women to participate in politics, we want women to participate in leadership, but there's still some challenges. Other than patriarchy, what else would you share?
There's certain realities even around the differences between men and women in terms of opportunities out there. Statistics constantly show us that even when it comes to economic empowerment, men are more economically empowered. And sometimes participation, especially in elections, is very expensive. So some of the challenges, now I'm going to talk about the challenges that the women themselves have told us, because we meet them. As I said, we've been meeting them. One of them, a key one, is resources. Resources for elections. Elections are very important in this country. The Transparency International Zambia a few years ago did a study which looked at the cost of participating in elections in Zambia and found that on average it was about 3.5 million. Yes, around there. So how many women have that amount of money? We have listened to women tell us how they lost everything because of the money that they had to raise for an election. They mortgaged houses. They just lost everything because of the cost of elections. So the cost of elections and campaigning is one of the impediments, the resource constraints. Then another one is women have spoken about sextortion. Sure. Yes, in political parties where they've tried to coerce them into sexual relationships with the promise of being adopted. And some of them have actually said, even after those promises, they still were not adopted. Now, it's a very sensitive issue, and a lot of them do not actually come up. But we noticed that with these discussions that we had with the political party, with the women recently, they were very open that it is happening. So one of our responses is that working with other organizations like Childline, Lifeline, and under the support of UNFPA, there are some toll-free numbers that are available now for women to report any violence, including sextortion, and we've encouraged women to do so. So those numbers are 933, 116, and 944. And we really encourage women to report any form of violence, including sextortion or advances for sexual favors, as Wood might describe it. So there's resources, there's sextortion, there's the patriarchy is the underlying issue. And then there's also just the dynamics in the political parties, as I said, around the leadership structures in there being filled by men. When they're filled by men, you expect that the decisions will favor men. So that's another thing. And political parties are the gatekeepers, around the participation of women. So when we resolve issues in there around leadership, and we resolve the issues around compelling political parties to nominate women, then would have solved one of the biggest challenges. And what we have been campaigning for or advocating for as NGOCC is the adoption of legislation through a Political Parties Act. And that Political Parties Act should actually compel political parties to nominate 50-50 at all positions, for all positions, so that even when the nominations go to to adopt 50-50, when the adoptions go to the ECZ for nomination, the ECZ should have also been empowered to reject those that don't. So a political parties law, I think, would be very helpful, but it must have the real legal backing, to even with the ECZ, to ensure that it's followed.
You've mentioned, I believe, what role political parties should do, but let's talk about maybe traditional leaders, civil society organizations, and communities. What role can they play in creating a more enabling environment for women in politics?
So I just wanted to mention that one of the biggest also impediments to women, before I go to that, is actually family dynamics. Yeah. We've had women who are maybe married and their spouses have just said, "Not my wife." Then there are some who have had very supportive husbands, and the extended family, including her own family, have said, "Not my daughter," or "Not our sister-in-law," or "My brother, how can you allow your wife to go?" And so that's one of the impediments. But coming to your question now was the role of
traditional leaders, civil societies, communities themselves, even family, in creating more enabling environment.
So I'll start with civil society. Civil society for us, it's around sensitization, it's around education to sort of try and change mindsets, it's around advocacy for conducive environments, it's around monitoring and holding government to account around some of its promises, and especially around implementation of legal frameworks. So for civil society, that's us. And it's just sensitization, building the confidence of women, ensuring that the environment is conducive for women to flourish. That's civil society. For traditional leaders are gatekeepers also in their own way. They are opinion shapers. So traditional leaders in Zambia are very well respected. We all respect traditional leaders, and wherever they are leading, they're listened to. So they can shape attitude change, norms, and shape norms. And we have worked with traditional leaders that have been so fantastic, especially around these issues of ending child marriage, working against gender-based violence, early teenage pregnancies. They've been fantastic, and I've even developed, together with some of our guidance, what we call bylaws at local level, in their own chiefdoms, to address, for example, if there's a case of GBV, how do we address it? This is what you do. You go and report. If there's incest in a family, this is what you do. So that has been very good. Then, of course, there's also the role of the church. A lot of Zambians are religious in some way. They're either Christians or they're Muslims or whatever faith. So faith-based organizations have a big, big role to play, because they shape opinions also. They shape behavior. So those also have a role. And then there's the education system also. The education system is very, very important, because when you shape a child, the Bible says, bring up a child in the way that he should go, and when he is old, he will not depart from it. So when we start in the homes as well, from shaping these opinions and behaviors, it also goes into the schools. There should be some agreement between the schools and the communities and the families on what values and on what behaviors would like to see, so that there is consistency in what is being taught in homes and what is being taught in schools. And then community, we've got community leaders. Remember, I talked about the fact that there are some women and men who are very influential at community level. So those are important. And we have one of our member organizations is called the Men's Network. And the Men's Network focuses on changing the mindset of men, and also trying to catch young men and boys early, so that they sensitize them on why gender equality is important, sensitize them on why they should not be perpetrators of GBV, because when it comes to GBV, about 78% of the victims and survivors are women, and the perpetrators in equal measure are men. So it's a whole combination of different stakeholders. And then there is government, of course, which needs to ensure that they have the correct policy and legal frameworks, and that those are being implemented correctly. For example, do you know that in our constitution we actually have a clause which says that any appointing authority that has the power to appoint in public office must appoint 50% women and 50% men? That's in our constitution. Sure. Yes, the highest law of the land. So how do we ensure that even the executive and those in power are actually implementing the policies as they should be implemented? Mm-hmm.
Some of these stats, or rather these findings, are, it's shocking, but it's in our constitution, but it's because perhaps it's not said as much, or it's not revealed as much on the public eye. So when you hear this, we get shocked, but that's in the law. Anyone can read up the constitution and find these findings. Now, We've gone through the nomination process. We're heading to the ballot box. I want to ask you, did the outcomes of the nomination process perhaps meet your expectations? And what lessons have emerged from this election cycle that you are hoping to implement as we obviously look forward to 2031? Not that we are rushing, but indeed, this is a campaign that's been run for 3 years, and you've met yourself at this election cycle. So what have been your expectations, and indeed, what has emerged from this cycle that you hope will do better on in the next one?
Okay. What would have liked is to have seen that 50-50 adoption and nomination. That hasn't happened. From all the figures that we're collecting, that hasn't happened. And change takes a long time, especially when it's to do with mindsets. It takes a long time. But we see that we're getting there. Just the fact that we have women willing to stand as independents, many of them, we're getting there. So we want to build on that momentum as we, go on to the next elections. And would like, for instance, to raise funds that can actually support women in the campaigns. We've had the donation button. We haven't raised the amount of money that would have liked to raise. And in the past, we've been very heavily dependent on international cooperating partners like the donor agencies. But this time, most of them have changed their focus, have changed their priorities. So we didn't get the support that we intended. And what we'd like to do in future is to really work around this. Her time is now campaign. It's not ending now. This is a campaign which we hope to consolidate even after these elections, so that by the time we get to the 2031 elections, we will have a pot of money to support women, and we will have, promoted more affirmative measures for women, and also worked on just investing in women's leadership in different ways. So for us, immediately after the elections we start, and we're also looking at a program. We've actually been engaging some potential funders of strengthening the participation of the women that are going to be elected. We are looking for funds that will enable us to strengthen their participation in Parliament, even by us ensuring that we are providing them with data, evidence-based, which can help them even in the debates when they're in Parliament, and which can help them better represent the constituency of women as they go in there. So for us, the campaign doesn't stop. We would like to see women empowered, and part of the empowerment, which is very important for NGOCC and is one of the objectives that we have even in our current work, and we're doing something about it, a lot about it, is to strengthen the resilience of women against shocks. When we talk about shocks, we can talk about the climatic shocks like the floods and drought, and then we also talk about shocks such as we had COVID. So how do you ensure that women are empowered to the extent that when these shocks come, they're able to sustain them? And that is about economic empowerment. It is about having, for instance, a diverse source of income. And if you're in agriculture, how do you mitigate against reduced yields because of climatic change? So building that, and even education is one of the issues around resilience. Access to financial services for women is also, so those are things that we address actually as NGOCC. We have programs that address those. And so part of the preparation for women is to make sure that they are ready, and they also need to learn to serve, not to serve, but to save money and resources for the next elections. I think savings groups are also going to be very important.
Definitely.
Yes.
Now, my questions indeed do come to a closing for now, but I think let's just head it over to some WhatsApps I've received and text messages. We've got Gideon Jr. from Pemba who has said, what's your take to those political parties who did not adopt female candidates as their running mates?
I think that those political parties are actually disadvantaging themselves. Why I say so is that women bring a very unique perspective as well. Just by the fact that they are women and have different lived experiences, they bring a unique perspective to the table. And it's very unfortunate if we have parties like that, because then they are really confirming that they are sexist. They don't believe in women participating, and I do not believe that there were no women, even who they could have approached. So it must have been deliberate that they did not approach women, and for us that's very disappointing. And we would like to engage those parties.
Definitely.
Yes, immediately after this.
I have another message from WhatsApp from Esther from Chalala. Says, just to follow up with the statement you made on the Iris Kaingo case. From your engagement with Miss Iris Kaingo, what impact has this incident had on her personally and politically? And do incidents of this nature discourage other women from contesting elections, even if they're not directly targeted?
I can't comment on the impact on her personally, but what I would say is that such incidences, definitely impact negatively on women, and women have told us that one of the biggest impediments to their participation is exactly this violence, and even especially the technologically facilitated violence through, the cyberspaces. Yeah. There are women who have had serious issues with their families because of lies that have been told about them on these campaign trials. And then they think, look, I don't want my child to read these things. I don't want my husband to believe these things, or my father or my brother. Then they decide to just stay away. So when you see things like what happened to Iris, and we must commend her. She's a very strong personality, and we encourage her not to give up, because these things are done deliberately to ensure that women just leave the space. But women, I would say, do not leave the space when you see these things. Let's look at how we can resolve these issues, firstly by reporting them, highlighting them, so that the relevant authorities can help. And even when it comes to counseling, we have some of our member organizations that are that can counsel, because that is their strength. Like the YWCA is very good at counseling against GBV. That is actually their forte, so they can do that very well. And please reach out if you need even counseling.
It seems this matter has quite sparked some engagement here. Sarah says, Sarah doesn't say from where, but says that I saw somewhere that you called for the Zambian police to investigate Iris Kaingo's matter. Was this submitted as a complaint? Was there any evidence as well? Would like to know. That's what the message says.
So the evidence was in the video. Because that went viral. That we heard what the song was saying. We could see the faces of the people. So that is, evidence in itself. But I think whether the matter is actually being investigated on the basis of a complaint that was actually lodged, that we have to check, because we cannot lodge the complaint. We can only highlight it to police and engage them to investigate the matter. And this is why we say it's very important for people who are the victims of this to actually lodge the complaint. So on that one, we'll have to check whether an official complaint was lodged. But that's what we'd like to see.
I think so too. We've got some, maybe a couple of questions that have come to mind while I was just noting down what you're saying. The ECZ's Gender Equality and Social Inclusion Policy sets out commitment to protect women in elections, which is something you've also highlighted. But policies are not laws. perhaps can the NGOCC maybe ensure that the policy results in maybe some sort of sanction rather than remaining a statement of intent, because I feel like at the end of the day, the dog barks, but you must maybe hit the dog for it to keep quiet or do something about it. What would you say on that?
You are absolutely right. This shouldn't just be rhetoric and statements. So one of the things that we're doing as NGOCC is before elections, during and immediately after, we're going to have what we call a situation room. We did that even in 2021. This situation room will be receiving real-time reports on what is happening on the ground in the campaigns, leading up to elections, during election day, and immediately post-election. So we'll have a system that will receive those reports. But that is not enough. This is where we come to what you're saying. We will link that, and it's going to be linked to the law enforcement agencies. So when we receive something happening in Petauke, for instance, we will also have a way of alerting the Petauke police. Yes. So that's the system that we are working with now. As you say, absolutely right. We cannot just have rhetoric, and we must link these reports that we will receive, even through these lines that we've spoken about, to help for those that will be in need.
My last follow-up question before we draw to the end of this is perhaps those who are experiencing sextortion, as you mentioned, a lack of resources, you mentioned, making women make very vulnerable and unlawful decisions when it comes to them campaigning. Now, these perpetrators who are extorting these women, if they do continue to act without impunity during these elections, does that suggest the problem is no longer legislative but institutional? And who should we hold accountable, Because I believe there's an offender, yes, but some of them belong to political parties. Should we call the police to be very heavily eye on the ground with what's happening? Does the ECZ also have some sort of power in doing that, or is it all of them, really?
It first starts with us as individuals. I think we all need to take responsibility. We have a beautiful country, Zambia, and would like to maintain the peace that we're known for regionally, internationally, globally. So it starts with us, and we are responsible for ensuring that we're not perpetrators. Secondly, as you say, we have the political parties. The political parties, for as long as they are not condemning violence every single day and bring into account those of their members that are perpetuating the violence, are actually then encouraging it. For example, that viral video there we're talking about concerning Iris, what has the political party done about it? There have been incidences all over the country where we actually have reports in the media around certain things that are happening. All political parties, from the highest leadership, must say that they do not, they should have, explained that they have zero tolerance for any violence, and explain what they will do to their members, like expulsion and even reporting them. Report your own members when they're the perpetrators. We want a peaceful Zambia. We want peaceful elections, and we want everybody to participate freely. So the political parties have a role. Individuals have a role. The Electoral Commission also has to implement whatever its mandate is around ensuring that there is peace, because they have the authority to take punitive action around a political party that is not following the electoral guidelines. So they should play their role as well. Then the law enforcement officers must also be impartial, first and foremost, and they must be present. They must be present where they should be present. But impartiality is also very, very important.
As we draw towards the end, I've just got about maybe 2 to 3 more questions. I mean, what message really does the NGOCC have for women who now aspire to contest in future elections? What can you say to perhaps push them to step forward and not be hesitant?
I think what I would say is, first and foremost, know that leadership has no gender. Women must understand that they have the capacity to do this. Can you imagine a woman that has, for instance, 7 children, is able to manage the household, is able to cook while she's cleaning, that is management. And there are lessons that you learn even in there around what are the needs of children, what are the needs of men, what are the needs. So every woman has lived experiences that they can bring to the table. There is nothing like being dull. All the lessons that we learn in our lives from the day we're born and begin to think are knowledge. We just have to turn it into something that we can communicate and use it to shape and inform our societies. So women must have the confidence, firstly, to know that they're very, very important, extremely knowledgeable. It is the only species that I know that can multitask. Yeah,